for our viewers who need an actionable plan to implement right away, what would be your recommended 6-month plan to fully break into VC?
The meet and greets, where you just go around and network with the startups as well. So I actually went to one of those meet and greets before BackingMinds, and I met the founder there, who I talked to, and we discussed their pitch deck and what they can improve. And without me knowing, BackingMinds called her because they saw that we had a connection somehow, and they had looked at her company as an investment, and they asked, we have Max here. Have you talked to him? Do you know him? And because I had put myself out there and really honestly tried to help them, out of pure interest, and then she gave me a good word. She said, yeah, Max is a genuine guy, and he's really humble. He works very hard. So yeah, I can recommend him. And those sort of connections and that network effect, it's super hard to estimate how valuable that is, but it's super valuable. So just network around, add people on LinkedIn. It's totally fine to add people on LinkedIn that you don't know. That's totally fine. Just grab a coffee with them or whatever. And I would say,
you're one of the people who started my venture capital journey after watching a video of yours at the 101 Fellowship VC program. And you're also one of the most humble and amazing person I've met. Max, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And before we dive into the specifics of VC, let's take it back a bit. You didn't just wake up and ended up in venture. Walk me through your journey. What was your first real exposure to venture capital? Was it when you were a real estate founder, or your first VC internship, plug and play, or maybe something else?
Yeah, a great question. I think, so I grew up, I'm taking this very far back, but I grew up in a very small village in Sweden, with about 200-300 people living there. And in the beginning, I remember at maybe age 5 or 6, I remember distinctly asking myself a question after me and my mom were grocery shopping. I asked myself, so why does this grocery store take our money when we go there and buy supplies? And that, I think that initial thought maybe sparked my interest for economics. So it all started from a question, and that question led to more questions, of course. And I think I found an interest in economics and then eventually finance very early on. But I didn't have any role models within the field of finance or entrepreneurship. So I just had to chart my own path. And yeah, right from the start, it was just asking a lot of questions, and that got me interested in business and entrepreneurship. So I had all these crazy ideas about starting a small ice cream shop at our local place, and then printing t-shirts, doing a casino for a while. That was very, very weird. But I think that all of these questions just brought me into business, which I just instinctively found very interesting. And at age 14, I understood that my interest for business was perfectly aligned with the finance and the stock market. So at age 14, I sat down with a guy at our local bank, brought my mom with me to that meeting, and I just straight up said, I want to start investing in stocks and the stock market. I had read a book on it and thought it was really cool. And he said, well, there is an age limit. You can't legally buy stocks. So after that meeting, I was a bit sad. So I went home and talked to my mom, and my mom and dad don't know anything about finance or the stock market or investing. But I just begged her to open an account for me so I could do my first investment. And I remember my first stock that I bought was Volvo, a big Swedish company. I thought I bought Volvo cars ended up being Volvo trucks, apparently. But yeah, so from there, just went on. It was like a snowball effect. So I got basically addicted to the stock market and to finance. And then went into the military at 18. And then after my military service, I think that was when I realized I wanted to study on a higher level, like real finance, and really learn about it. So I moved to Stockholm and started at an engineering school there, started studying technical finance, which was a huge step for me, to move to another town. I hadn't really been in Stockholm before. It was everything was so huge and so stressful. but yeah, and 2 weeks into uni, I started working. I was very keen on getting a foot in the finance sector. So I started booking meetings for financial advisors. I did that. I think I earned $7 an hour, I think, and got maybe $15 if I managed to book in a random client to a financial advisor. And I started there. I really started tracking and trying to show my analytical skills, because I knew this wasn't the end goal for me. I wanted to become an analyst at this finance firm, and then hopefully get to work with investments all day, every day. So I started to note down my traction and started doing analysis on how many sales or meetings I managed to book in, and then show that to my bosses all the time, and they probably thought I was a bit crazy or a bit overambitious. But a couple of months later, the day came where an analyst in that team and in that department quit. And I just begged them, please, can I do this? Give me a shot here and I'll show you that it's worth it. And yeah, they were like, yeah, we have seen your analysis. Probably you can do a good job here. So yeah, that was my first analytical role. And then moved over to the investment management department, doing ESG analysis there. And then, yeah, simultaneously, I got involved in KTH Innovation, which is a startup hub at our school. So I had a project there with a company that I founded called Property, and did that simultaneously for a year. Yeah, and that led to other things, which we can go a bit deeper into later.
Yeah, especially your background resonates with me, because my parents also doesn't come from like a finance background. So that, we kind of screw up where it's like they are more of like on the non-finance side, and like, okay, stock market, stuff like that, I'm just gonna let other people handle that for me. And what you said about like when you were 14 and you're like, hey, let's get like, into investing into stocks. And then your parents like, wait, dude, like you're 14, you probably don't know anything about this. Like, why are you doing this? But the things that for you, the finance, the economy basically runs in your vein. And
Yeah,
you're like so into it. And you just feel like, I need to understand more about this world, and specifically about finance, which is like the amazing part. And your journey from like all the way to school and everything like that, even at Sonnenberg and Partners, like all those parts play a role in where you really are solidifying your skills. And ESG is like really important in like these as well. So yeah, I mean, thank you for being so humble. And, for those who don't know, Max started out as a founder to accelerate the real estate market, and then ESG analyst at Sonnenberg and Partners, which is one of the biggest financial advisors in the Nordics. And he's also a mentor in his KTP University. And when he was a VC intern at Plug and Play, it's a VC firm with 11 IPOs and 23 unicorns. And then after that, he's a corporate intern at Procter and Gamble. We all know what that is.
yeah.
And also one of the coolest VR AR VC firms that invested in Sandbox VR. And lastly, to BackingMinds. So, when you were working, in the industry or any industry before, you got into venture, what was the moment that you realized, you want to make the jump into VC? Was there like a light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, I think, given my background with my interest in the stock market and in investments and finance, and combined with my really like natural instinct or like drive in entrepreneurship, I think when I came to KTH, I had no clue what venture capital was. No idea. Never heard of it. Didn't know that you can work with investing in startups. I had no clue. But I think when I got the exposure with Properly that I founded, I think when I got the exposure to first pitch a couple of investors, then I realized, hey, these guys do this full time. And I thought that was very cool, and started to Google a bit and, look at some YouTube clips of what it was. And then I think like a light bulb effect, but also very naturally was just made sense for me to go into VC. I think in that moment, a new world opened up for me, which I didn't think existed. With that said, I don't think that I directly set up a goal to go into venture capital, and I didn't expect myself to go into venture capital last year or any near term. That was not my expectations, because from what I Googled, I heard that, oh, you need to do 5 years in investment banking or 2 years in private equity or a hedge fund, and then you might be able to start in VC. So that was just out of the question for me. But it turned out, my insights from both founding a company and then combining that with the ESG and sustainability focus, and then also the stock market, equity research. I think everything there just played a small part of me becoming a venture capitalist. And I think it was pretty natural, just a step from going from investment management or corporate finance into VC was pretty natural, but it wasn't hesitated. So I did not try to stress this or like really get into VC right now. I was just like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. But I'm super grateful that I got the opportunity now to try and hopefully make some change in that sphere and in that sector.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a long journey in the making. And when you look back at it, you're like, oh, all the dots kind of just connect.
Exactly.
But then, like, when you were younger, you're like, okay, I don't know what, VC is. I just learned about it. Maybe this could be a good thing. But then once you kind of see what they do, and then like your experiences, you're like, wait, I'm actually like perfect for this role. And, I'm going to do my best with my drive in entrepreneurship and all my insights and my ability to connect the dots. I've got the ability to become a VC. And now you're here as a VC. So a lot of people see VC as this glamorous thing, but we know that it's not always that simple. What was the hardest part of transition into BackingMinds for you? Was there a steep learning curve, or did it feel like a natural shift?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a steep learning curve in the beginning, especially, just being, as you say, in the trenches and talking to as many startups as possible, taking every meeting, say yes to everything, that increases your learning speed tremendously. But also I think that naturally it was not such a big step. I didn't have any expectations of VC at all. So I just went in with an open mind, and I think that is super important when starting out in VC. I would say that VC is it's a very, very wide used term for a lot of different things. And I think that if you go into, once again, investment banking, for example, I have lots of friends who has gone to that direction, and you have you can expect a certain amount of things. Like you will sit in Excel for a lot of the time. You will do a lot of PowerPoints. You will do a lot of hours at work. but I didn't know anything about VC, so I didn't have any expectations at all. But it was, I think I try always to just stay very humble and take one step at a time. Just me back in uni when I took that first job as a meeting booker, or I booked meetings, that wasn't super glamorous or super cool to say to my friends that did investment banking or whatever, to say like, hey, I've started booking meetings. But it was a small step, and eventually, you build up all those steps, and you become pretty good at something. And I still know that I have so much to learn, and I am very humble to the fact that I'm not at all a good VC currently. So I just want to learn as much as possible and try to just be as a sponge, just suck in every single learning experience that I can, and just along the way take small steps all the time. But also, I think, as one of my previous bosses said, a lot in early, like when you're a junior in VC, I think a lot of the work is just putting down your head and just get to work, sit on the boring stuff, write mails about pitch decks or whatever. I think that is very funny or very fun, but just keeping your heads down and just grind, I think is super important. And especially stay humble, because you should be able to know that you will never be the person in the room, at least in VC, you will never be the person in the room that knows the most about the topic that you discuss. There's always a super brilliant founder at that meeting who knows everything about it. But you have to be kind of confident and humble, and be able to ask questions, a lot of questions, as I've done since I was 5 years old. I still ask a lot of questions and understand that I don't know anything yet, and just try to see every opportunity as a learning opportunity. I think that is very important.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really love how you emphasize the fact that we should be listening to the founders who knows their thing, and really just like let them explain to us what their company is, what their startups are, and everything like that. So then we can actually be the one to invest in a company that is going to work out, and they are going to tell us like all the good things about them. We shouldn't just be sticking to ideals about, oh, what do I think about this industry myself? It should be a collaborative process where everyone is sharing their thoughts and everyone's being humble enough to know that there are specific niches and things that we each don't know.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Let's talk shop. But as someone who's in the trenches looking at deals every day, what are the top 3 things you look for in startup when you are considering whether to invest or not?
Yeah, I think usually, like if you Google like the playbooks of looking at deals in VC and early stage investments, I think you usually get like the timing needs to be right, the market needs to be right, the team needs to be right, it must align with the current trends that we see, whatever. But I think if I were to give those as an answer, I think you could easily go and Google that. So I will be a bit more specific here, just to get you some idea of what we actually discuss during our meetings in the team. So one thing that I usually try to questioning is firstly defensibility. So that is in the part of like technology, I would say. So looking at technology, but more specifically the defensibility of the technology. And that comes basically from microeconomic theory about how markets work. I'm pretty sure we all have done some basic microeconomics at school. But it's the basic theory of if there is a profit in a market, free competition will eventually marginalize that profit to zero. That is the basic economic theory. And when applying this concept to venture capital investing and startups lifespan, you can assume that once a startup gets profitable and start doing a lot of profits and start to find their market fit and get a lot of customers, then 99% certainty there will be a lot of competitors coming up and trying to steal those profits from your investment. So their defensibility is super important. I think Jimmy Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan, he usually talks about balance sheet fortress, I think. Having the ability from a financial point of view to defend your position if you get hit or if the market conditions turn. So that is just from a financial point of view. Then you can talk regulatory or legal point of view. When you have patents, for example, on your technology, that is super important. If you have a really good technology with no patents and you think, oh, yeah, well, probably no one will be able to do this. Sometimes you hear founders say that, yeah, but I'm so smart, so nobody else will be able to do this. Like, yeah, definitely people will try to copy this. So you need to be legally prepared to defend that position. So that is super important, I think, especially on the long term when looking at investments. Secondly, I need to say team. Team is super important. Not maybe, the guy that knows most about AI should do it. But I think execution-wise, it's super important. Everybody can have a good idea about a market or a product. Oh, I think this market would be so much better if this product existed, for example. Great idea, but can you actually execute this idea? And that is super important to understand that this team is the absolute perfect team to get this idea out to the market. And sometimes we see very, very visionary, super talented, good founders, but they aren't able to explain how they will get to their 2030 goal in sales or whatever. So that is super important. And then thirdly, I think for us, especially at BackingMinds, we are super keen on investing in things that we truly believe in and really want to follow along on that mission. A lot of different VC firms, especially now, last few months, have been just throwing away term sheets on startups. I heard a story of a guy starting a company, and because he had a successful track record of founding companies, he within like 1 week from founding and registering that company, got term sheets thrown at him, which is weird. So we want to be a bit different. We want to look at what we call overlooked founders. We want to be able to allocate capital to parts of the startup's atmosphere that don't usually get capital allocated to them. So that could be, for example, female founders tend to not get as much capital as male founders. We have seen in studies. That can be minority background founders. It can be a overlooked market that don't usually is hyped. With that said, we don't do any negative screening on, of course, but we tend to try to look at extraordinary founders with multiple different backgrounds, and then if we believe in their mission, we want to support it and go into a partnership with them. So yeah, those three things are especially important: defendability, good execution-minded team, and also the mission, I would say.
Yeah, those three are actually like insanely important for those who don't know. Because the first thing is having a moat. You need that, especially when there could be 16 different startups doing the exact same thing as you. It's like, how do you even compete? And your market share is just going to go down, down, down as more people go into it. Because, you're in a profitable sector and you want to make that money. And when other people see you doing it, they're just like, okay, let me just join in. And then the second thing is founder execution is actually what matters a lot. Because let's say like even if you were in a niche industry, there's still gonna be like competitors, and there might be like other competitors that are just like massively overfunded by VCs or something like
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
So then it's like, what are you gonna do? Like you gotta have that good team, that good execution, and you've got to get the best people, and you got to understand that they can do the job. And even if they, have to be lean in their spending, they should be able to know how to do that when you fund them. Cause, they've got to be the best people. They got to understand business. And that's why, people actually really do love like second time founders and funding them, because they are like the best people who've been through it. And the third is amazing that, you guys are doing for BackingMinds. And what we really need in like society is diverse entrepreneurs and underinvested markets and, opportunities just outside of the traditional capital hubs. And, it's like many of these people and all these assets in the world should come to light so that, it's like a win-win situation,
Yeah.
BackingMinds, you guys, would have winning founders so that you guys get even more like value. And then the founders actually get someone to believe in them as their support pillar. And that's what, really matters in this world. So, and
Yeah,
recent,
and I should add, there is two aspects of this. I think, like allocating capital to the people that don't usually get it. So, for example, our founder Sarah, she has looked at some studies that show that if you want to get an investment from a VC firm, be a white male or bring one to the pitch session, which is insane. So that is one thing. But also, venture capital firms are so competitive against each other. So, not only the startups have a huge competition against them, also VC firms are competing for the absolute best deals all the time. And just from we think that we can generate an excess return if we look at stuff that not other people look at, because there's no scientific data showing that a company founded in a small town has a lower success rate than a company founded in Stockholm, for example. There's nothing that shows that, and there for us it's a win-win. Also. Yeah.
that's freaking amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I know that you guys did like a recent investment in Hybrid Energy. That's like a company that's focused on developing electrical panels powered by AI energy cloud. Is there anything that you or BackingMinds are especially bullish on, that the market might not be paying enough attention to yet?
Yeah, I think, I think that Elon Musk actually said this very well. I think that Elon Musk is a great entrepreneur, a better entrepreneur than politician, I would say. but so how you can think of impact from an idea is delta, the improvement of that market times the people affected. That is the outcome of an investment. And if we think about that, I think that, for example, give you an example here, water waste management has a huge innovation gap. There's almost everybody is affected by water waste management. And there is not a lot of innovation there that has been done. We see a lot of things coming up now, but for example, PFAS, which is a very dangerous and cancerous chemical that is in industrial wastewater and from production. These small particles tend to get out in the system and then down in the land, and then we accidentally get them in us when we will drink water. There is a huge impact if you can solve this in a cost-effective and energy-efficient way. So that is one example. Then I think there's a lot of room for private innovation in healthcare, for example, and medtech as well. especially in healthcare, there's a lot of problems here in Europe with super long waiting lists for good healthcare. So that is a big problem that I think we want to see more innovation in. But there are a lot of super cool industries with huge innovation gaps, and I think that is basically what we try to identify early on and try to be ahead of the competition. So, for example, if what we tend to not actively seek out is maybe just general AI agents, for example. There are multiple super cool companies there, but the market is so saturated there. So maybe the add-on impact and the improvement delta is maybe not as big as solving the PFAS problem, for example. I think mostly a lot of industrial things to do to improve general conservative markets. I would say that is what we try to look at.
Yeah, I really love how you and BackingMinds is really focused on the unsexy industries.
Yeah.
Where people is just like, oh, everyone's going to health, everyone's going to medicine, everyone's going to finance, and SaaS, all that. But then you guys are really focusing on the people who don't really get that, discovery from VCs. And that is where that major win, I believe, is going to come from.
For sure.
So, let's switch gears for a second. Often people think the grass is greener on the other side. VC is a tough business with lots of ups and downs, and it might not be the right thing for everyone. Who is VC not?
That is a really good question. I think that since VC is so wide, and I think that there is probably space for any background or any field whatsoever. I talked to a Singaporean guy when I did my exchange there. He started off working for the government in Singapore with infrastructure. He ended up his second job was at Sequoia at a partnership level, I think. So there are no truly like good fits for VC. What I think is a bad fit, which comes a bit about like what you expect from VC versus what you get. I think that if you want to maybe go to St. Movie in the winters, look at sports car driving on ice, or fly private jets, or stay at luxury hotels, I think VC isn't really for you if that is your motivation. I do think that you need to have like an actual really keen interest in business and in innovation. I think that is super important. So if you go for that sort of lifestyle, I don't think VC is a good fit for you. But generally, I think that anybody can try on VC and see if they like it or whether or not it's a fit for them. I think that VC is so generalistic, so you can have whatever background and then still find your spot. And there, I think if you more tangibly, if you think of like Sequoia, for example, that is a huge investment firm. So they have departments of special niche deal flow. So, for example, infrastructure, one is medtech, one is fintech, for example. Then it's good to have a specialist background because you can get a really good edge against other competitors if you have that specialty within that field. But if you want to work in a boutique VC firm, generalist investor, then I think your profile should match that as well, actually. So I have a very generalist background. I tend to be interested in whatever field I can find an interest in. So I chose BackingMinds because we are a generalist, we are a boutique VC firm, and our values just align. So yeah, I think it's super important just to not go in with too high expectations of a lifestyle or what you ideally want to work with. I think you have to be very flexible and be able to just keep your head down, be humble and grind. at least in a junior level, and then if you start working at a super large VC firm at a partnership level, then you probably can fly private jet or whatever you want to do there, but not in the junior positions, I think.
Yeah. Like Max mentioned, one of the best ways to break into VC is if you're like a specialist of a thing that you do. So then if you're a specialist of a certain industry and then VCs are looking to invest into that industry, you actually have one of the greatest leverages to break into VC as like maybe an operator, stuff like that. But there are many, many VC roles within a VC firm. And Max has done like ESG analyst, which is like investing in sustainable living. And that's like something that has been promoting throughout the world for a long time. And that's what we need. And there's also like tons of roles, which is why based on your background, your experiences, you may be fit for a specific VC and a specific role within that VC firm.
Yeah, I think it's super important for young people that want to go into VC just to really question whether or not this particular firm is the best fit. Also, like it's not about you reaching out to any VC firm and then take whatever you get. I think that if you approach it like that, I think you will be pretty miserable in long term in a company where you don't feel like you share the same values or you're wanted in that team, you know. So I think do your own research also on the particular firm you're looking at and see if you really share the same values. That is just key. And as you say, also there's a lot of like random instances where this particular VC firm is looking at an investment in the cow industry, for example, and like agriculture, and you grew up in a farm with cows and know a lot about that. You know, that is just a random timing, but that can be the ultimate leverage that you get and then get into that firm. So I think also luck plays a huge part. And if you want to decrease dependency on luck, you can increase the number of applications you send. It's also a numbers game.
Yeah. So right now we're on this topic. Could you talk a bit about like the key reasons you personally landed each of your VC internships, the plug and play, one-on-one fellowship, presence capital, and also your role at BackingMinds?
Yeah, I think first VC internship I got was working with Paul Bragiel, a Silicon Valley VC, and his experience just really taught me a lot. He's super cool. He has been in the Olympics, for example, and has worked on many cool companies. That was just me. That was a result of me always talking about startups and entrepreneurship. So I had this guy called Anders in my class at KTH. He personally knew Paul from back in the days when they were doing the demo scene, which is a music sort of, you program your own music back in the 80s or 90s. So they knew each other from back then, and he started studying the same program as I did. And I basically just talked to him all the time about entrepreneurship. And yeah, you know, showed what I was doing with Properly. And that when Paul then came to Anders to ask if he knew anyone, any young guy or girl that was interested in finance and entrepreneurship and maybe VC, then he immediately thought of me and just set up an introduction, and then it was go time from there. And I think that was probably like, once again, super lucky. But also, you know, I created kind of my own luck there to always be outgoing and to always show that I'm super interested in these things, and you never know who might know who. So it's a big part about networking as well. Then plug and play was just through my university. I didn't do a lot of time there, so it was basically a university program at plug and play. where you got a lot of pitch decks to look at and then evaluate and stuff. I didn't find that really interesting. And then BackingMinds was just pure application. I didn't know anyone at BackingMinds, but there I also pretty fortunate to share the same values as BackingMinds. I think I was certainly not the most. I didn't have the best profile for BackingMinds, I think, on my resume. But when talking to them, we just got along so well and shared so many interesting ideas about how we could automate stuff and what an ideal investment looked like. So there, I think I was able to kind of stand out because we shared the same values together. So it's a lot of luck, and I am super humble and grateful that I've been this lucky. But also, some part of it is to always try to create your own luck and to be very outgoing and network, and that is a huge part about VC in general as well. I think the network. I drastically underestimated the value of a good network and being outgoing, and talking to as many people as you possibly can, because some that you might know another person that can be ultimately beneficial for your deal flow, or sourcing a good deal, sending you over a pitch deck, or knowing someone that has a good pitch or a good startup. So yeah, so much about network and so much about luck, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being so humble and saying that it's all luck. When I personally know that when you say like luck, you have to actually create your own luck in the way where you have to go to these environments, you have to build yourself and talk to like a bunch of people and really build that close connection with them. And that part has like so much failing, and there's like, a low chance of success. But once it works out, it really works out and the dots really connect. But that part of, you saying it's all luck, it's mostly like hard work to create that environment, to create that luck. And you've done it. And that's why, you are a VC right now. So let's switch a little bit of gears and talk about what you do in a day in VC.
Yeah, that's good for all the listeners to really understand what you're getting yourself into. I think that it depends a lot on which sort of company you're at and which sort of like deal stage you're in. Sometimes there's a lot more work to be done than other times, but generally I wake up at around 6 to 7. I try to go for a morning run or try to work out just to get some energy, then grab one coffee, and then just head into the office. And we are a very small team. We are 5 people currently. So it's very good, like family vibe. So we greet each other. We are super happy that we see each other every morning. And then I try to sit down with my manager and the entire team and just discuss, what is important right now, today, this week, and for the coming month, for example. So I try to write down a to-do list early in the morning just to set my head straight and have a pretty good understanding of how my day will look. Then if I have something super urgent in the morning, maybe a pitch meeting or some material that needs to be done for our investment committee or whatever, then I will try to do that as soon as possible just to get my head straight and reduce stress during the later hours of the day. Then if it's a chill period, I will just go through my mail, my LinkedIn, check my inboxes, if there's any cool outreaches, and if I have any cool pitch decks I can look at. And then around lunch, I usually go out, grab a salad or whatever, and then usually sit by the desk to eat and do some work simultaneously. And then, just take some meetings. Usually the pitch meetings are in the afternoon. So around 2-3 p.m. are usually the sweet spot for taking pitch meetings. So I tend to have 1 or 2 per day almost. But I need to get a bit better at my time management there, because it can be a bit ineffective sometimes. But yeah, and then, not a super late day, we finish at 5 or 6 p.m. and then go home and have a chill time. So I think that this probably differs a lot from also culture, basically where you work. So I think that Norway, I'm Swedish, so I think that Norway is the most lazy people in the workspace. Apparently, from studies, they show that they take the most amount of sick leave days. But I think that in Scandinavia, if you work at a VC firm, you will never do those crazy hours. So that is very good, and I think that we focus, like generally in Scandinavia, we focus on a slow living, a very good balance between family relations and your health and a career. So I've heard stories about other VC firms, not particularly in Sweden, where you do long hours and really can put in 80 hours per week, but that is not the case from what I have heard in Sweden at least. So yeah, and then there's a bit of mix between deal sourcing and the working on current portfolio companies. I myself, I think it's very time inefficient for me to start with helping our current portfolio companies, because I don't have that history with them. I don't have that understanding. So I think I will slowly build that knowledge throughout. We have a lot of different investments and teams to work with. But with that said, like for us as a team and as a firm, portfolio companies should always be prioritized at all times. And then comes deal flow and sourcing. That is because we go into and we see investments as a partnership more than just an investment. So we want to be able to add value. Out of 100 deals, if you look globally in VC, 10% of all deals or all investments done, the startups there say that their VC add value to them or their investment. I'm not quite sure if it was 20 or 30% of the startups say that their VC subtracts value or add negative value, and then everything in between is just neutral. And we want to always try to be that top 10% and always put the founders first and the portfolio companies first, and then deal flow second. But I tend to usually be in that later category of looking at a lot of deals and trying to find the absolute best companies to bring into the team and have a discussion with and get an intro with them.
Yeah. As Max says, it could be very different if you're in different VC firms, but for BackingMinds, their focus is on their portfolio companies and making sure that their founders are well taken care of. So right now, for our viewers who need an actionable plan to implement right away, what would be your recommended 6-month plan to fully break into VC?
Sure. Just to start, there are no perfect formulas for this, but I will try to give like my step-by-step that I think would work for most of the people. So I think step 1 is to identify your strengths, and understand what you value in a VC firm. I think that is super important, and work on those strengths to leverage that. Because you will never be able to be the best at everything that the VC firm does. If you're super good, if you think that you're good at maybe doing valuation of company, then there's probably 10 other people applying for that job that has done 3 years in investment banking and are just the absolute best of the best at that. So you have very hard competition, and then you need to understand what strengths you have. And then also values, understand what you value in a company. Secondly, I would really, really, really recommend identifying your weaknesses. I think this is super important to get an edge amongst other applicants. So sit down with a blank piece of paper and then write down different aspects of a good VC analyst, for example. So that can be, for example, legal questions, that can be valuation, that can be networking, branding, just working operationally, like the startup mindset. Write those down, and then you grade yourself from 1 to 10 there, and be pretty harsh. Like 10 out of 10, you're the best in the world probably, and then 1 out of 10, you don't know anything about it. So I did this when I started, taking my application seriously, and I understood pretty quickly that I have so limited experience in accounting. I have no clue about actually what accounting is. I've done one course at uni, which wasn't that great. So I was able to identify that weakness that I had, and then do an extra course in that particular area to improve my overall profile. And I think most people don't usually actively seek out, what am I bad at? What are my weak qualities that I have? I think if you do that most people don't, I think you will have an immediate edge there. So that is super important. And just work on your weaknesses to increase your overall profile. Simultaneously, while also trying to communicate and working on your strengths and be the best at something as well. And then step 3, I would say just go out and network. Network is super important, and I didn't understand how important it is in your day-to-day VC job as well. So go out, talk to multiple different firms. I think also you can get a lot of good knowledge if you go out and talk to a lot of startups as well. Be in the sort of like, the meet and greets, where you just go around and network with the startups as well. So I actually went to one of those meet and greets before BackingMinds, and I met the founder there, who I talked to, and we discussed their pitch deck and what they can improve. And without me knowing, BackingMinds called her because they saw that we had a connection somehow, and they had looked at her company as an investment, and they asked, we have Max here. Have you talked to him? Do you know him? And because I had put myself out there and really honestly tried to help them, out of pure interest, and then she gave me a good word. She said, yeah, Max is a genuine guy, and he's really humble. He works very hard. So yeah, I can recommend him. And those sort of connections and that network effect, it's super hard to estimate how valuable that is, but it's super valuable. So just network around, add people on LinkedIn. It's totally fine to add people on LinkedIn that you don't know. That's totally fine. Just grab a coffee with them or whatever. And then I would say, like a last thing, try to find the VC firms that you are really interested in. Try to understand the deals that they have done. And, if they have a open job position, then apply and write about that deal. Why you thought it was interesting, why not? And maybe why you think that this particular VC firm's values are so in line with your own values, and how you can leverage that. But also, I think it's no doubt that it is a numbers game. So you need to pump the applications you have done. You need to pump those numbers up. So apply to maybe 50, 60 jobs, and then you will maybe get an interview at 5 of them, and then maybe one will lead to a good job. So yeah, just what did I say? So identify your strengths, identify your weaknesses, and work on them. You build up a network, use that network, and then a bit about numbers game and do your research, I would say. Then you're good. And also I can add a street smart thing to do is probably to try to become a startup founder, at least try, to really understand, because then you can take those, the learnings that you get from trying to found a startup and apply that to your application or to your regular job in VC, because that is ultimately what all VCs want to see. They want to see that you really understand business and, startup life.
Yeah. So VCs want to understand that you know yourself, your strengths and weaknesses. They want to know that you are able to build that community, to go out to like the founders events. Like these are actually like free for most of them. You just like kind of meet founders and then talk to them about their companies. Like most founders, they're really, really excited, and they're like, anyone who asks about my company, I'm going to tell them everything about it. Doesn't matter if you're a kid, doesn't matter if you're a student, doesn't matter if you're just like an adult somewhere. But ask them, and then they'll talk about everything. And then once you have built that network, then everything just compounds. And then once you look back, it's like all the dots connect. And one thing that Max said is that be a startup founder, because that also helps you resonate with founders. That also help you understand what you need to do to mentor founders and stuff like that. So now to wrap up, let's do a few rapid fire questions.
Let's
Ready?
go. Yeah.
What is the best book you read recently?
I can't say Range by David Epstein. I read during my military service. It's super important, the topics that he discussed. So basically, his theory is that the world is so specialist, or the world will promote specialists in the future, and it's super important to be a specialist. But with the uncertainty of AI and how quickly things change, it might be good to be a generalist instead. Because you can use, if you have a generalist background, you can use all of those key skills that you have gained from all of these different ventures or whatever you have done, and then put them all together and draw connections from previous experiences into solving that problem that maybe not a specialist directly would connect, because they have so narrow background. And that depends also what you go into. But yeah, I think if you want to understand a bit about why I chose to become a generalist and tried multiple different things, then I think Range would be very interesting to read. Or watch a summary on YouTube. That's fine.
If you could invest in any startup from the past, which one would it be?
Oh yeah, easily. Because I'm a Swede, I must say Spotify, I think. Otherwise, I will be hated. No, but so Spotify is probably the best. We have multiple different really cool startups produced in Sweden, but I think that Spotify, regarding like my personal interest for music and the music industries, would align very good with Spotify. Also, that journey of like completely changing a industry, completely, like being up against the big music giants, all the record labels, and then just changing everything and ultimately creating the best product in the world. Like if I were to, if I lost my job and really went out of money, Spotify would be the last thing that I would cancel my subscription on, definitely, because the product is so good, and it would have been very cool to be a part of that journey. I think I was 10 maybe, probably when that was founded, so missed out because of that.
Awesome. What is one difference between an otter and a beaver?
Oh, you've done your research. Yeah, so a otter, I think, so a beaver, they eat wood, or they bite on wood a lot and try to build dams. They have pretty flat tails. And then an otter is just eating fish, and they are a bit smaller, I would say. So I was interviewed by by Sara, our founder at BackingMinds, and on Instagram, and she asked me which emoji I would like to be. And I've seen the emoji, with the otter laying on its back and floating. I think that looks super chill.
All right. That was amazing, Max.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who wants to learn more about you or your firm, what is the best place to reach you? LinkedIn, email?
Yeah. You can always reach me on LinkedIn. So Max Larsson on LinkedIn. And also mail if you would like to. If you have a good startup idea or whatever, you can always pitch me at max@backingminds.com. You can go and check our website. It's cool if you want to get some some knowledge, and also check out our founders and our team. We're doing a lot of different things in the Swedish ecosystem. So yeah, just reach out, and I'm happy, whatever question you might have, just reach out and we'll discuss. No worries.
I'm going to drop his contact details on the link below. Thank you again, and thank you for everyone who was listening. Comment and question you want to hear for our next guest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to press the subscribe button, like, and share it with someone who's interested in getting into venture. We'll see you next time on Break into VC.
Thank you so much.